find the audience really responsive to what you're saying?
Yeah.
What is it they need to hear? What are they coming for?
I don't know if they know what they're coming for when they come to me, but they're relating to the message. Years and years ago when I started writing, so I started in 2003, 2004, I started writing, and my first book, there's Country Yossi magazine, right? And he had a list, he had like the 10, 20 best-selling books, and the book went to the top, the number one spot. So I realized that Hashem is telling me, like, you should keep on doing this. And I did. I started doing that very intensively. My decision beginning was that I'm going to write only positive messages. I'm not going to focus on, like a lot of different writers, they write about these things and abuse and like let's say disagreements in marriages, and I said I'm going to be focusing on God's presence in our lives and how great He is and how wonderful He is and how the world is a great place and it's positive and the great things we can accomplish, and people, that message resonates, and how great you are as a person and how you have tremendous potential and how you could change the world, and that message resonates with people, and they feel good and they like to hear that, and therefore, this is a whole book. It's all positive messages from Pirkei Avos, from the 48 ways. It's all positive. So that's my goal, to increase awareness of God in a positive way in this world.
So does that mean that people were not getting that message? What message were they getting?
I don't know what they were getting. I can just tell you, stories is a very powerful tool to bring this point out, and that was my message. There are a lot of good writers. Everybody has their theme, and this was my theme, and it resonates. I have a column in Hamodia for the last 15 years, true stories, true short stories. Let's say I'll meet a person on a plane. While this trip, people told me many stories. Today, somebody called me just now, before, when I was in 770s. In the Children's Museum, somebody called me to tell me so. And these are positive stories again. They're all different directions. They could be in different countries. And the underlying theme to two things. One is I like surprise kind of endings. So people have called me the Jewish O. Henry, like that. Mendel Kessin, he called me the Jewish O. Henry. But again, what is the theme? The underlying theme is increasing God's glory in the world. His intrinsic connection to our lives. Every single thing is planned. Not Ashkacha Pratis, divine providence stories necessarily, but that underlying message comes across.
So you don't use the term, but you're talking about it.
There's a certain genre called Hashkacha Pratis, and it's I caught the bus, and because I caught the bus, no, that's not for me. That's not my thing. I like broader. I like
the more obvious
twist at the end. That type of thing. Yeah.
I guess it's a sad and painful reality. Talking to frum people, you need to reintroduce God into the picture. Not so much the goodness, just the presence. No, the reality of Him in our lives. So we've always known, you do mitzvahs, you're serving Him, you do as Hashem. But that's kind of vague, and people kind of put it on the back burner. To bring the Eibishter back, to bring God back into the front, it is so important.
If you want people to feel God in their world, they need to feel good about themselves first, I think. It's very hard for people to get to Hashem if they aren't feeling good inside. So I'm a big believer in building up people, and once they feel good, they feel Hashem surrounding them. I think this just goes together, hand in hand, That's what I find. Dr. Laz, remember the book Skull Caps and Switchblades? You read that book. It's such a positive approach. Why did he work? He gets into a classroom, a bunch of kids, inner city kids. Why is it working? Because he's a positive educator, and he wasn't apologetic about what he believed in, and the kids loved him. These are African American kids. They connected with this guy because he was very confident about who he was. He wasn't apologetic, and he was full of life and full of goodness and full of positive messages, and they felt good. These are kids that nobody ever said a good word to them, so they felt good. I've used it, in this book actually. I brought an example from Dr. Laz's book, and about how he talks about learning chavrusa, learning with partners, and it's one of the 48 ways. So I brought him as an example from his book. I also talked about what he did in the classroom when his big student challenged him to a fight, and we took him down in the classroom, and after that they became friends.
It's a good story.
It's a great story. He says, "Let's say you and me have it out right now." He's like, "Leland, you've been asking for this all year. Clear the desks." And the students are like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Come on." And he takes this guy down. His elbow's on his neck. He's like on top of him. And then everyone knows he won. And Leland comes over and he goes like, you're the first teacher who ever stood up to me. I think you and me are going to be okay. That's Dr. Laz.
Those are great stories. I find another message that's really crucial. And to put it dramatically, I get right,
Go for it.
Straight for the jugular.
Who's jugular?
Everybody's. The message is, Torah is trying to tell you something you would never suspect. God needs you more than you need him. That's what makes him God. He created the world. He has a divine plan. He invented this whole thing. How did we become the center of attention? Like, we need him and he's there to serve us? How did that happen? If you really want to get excited about God in your life, it's not just that he helps you and supports you when you're in trouble. You don't just call to him, when all else fails.
1-800 dial God.
Right. Crisis hotline. It's all about him. We're invited into his world, into his plan, into his need.
So his need for us, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, what's his need for us? Let's go with you here.
Okay.
What's his need for us?
First of all, it's got to be obvious. Why did he create the world? To do us a favor? So first of all, we didn't exist yet. We didn't need a favor.
Didn't need the favor.
And secondly, this is a favor.
like he says,
Thank
a
you,
fiddler
but no
on the
thank-
roof, right? Maybe pick someone else, right? That's his line, yeah.
So he's doing it for kindness.
Okay.
That's not a good enough explanation because we didn't need the kindness and we don't really appreciate it. So, Bereshis bara Elokim. In the beginning, God created the world. That tells you almost everything you need to know. It's not about us, it's about him. And what is our biggest blessing, the thing we should be most grateful for? That he needs me. So here's a good story.
But why does he need you first before the story? You're going out on a limb over here. You're saying God needs us. So let's understand, why does God need us? And then you tell me your story, your great story.
Okay, so in simple language, for some divine reason, being perfect and alone is not acceptable. V'haraya?
He creates people.
Yeah.
You're coming from the answer to the question, basically.